My daughter cut me out of her secret wedding, called me a nobody, and demanded my beach house. Then I exposed a predator's chilling con that shattered our world. If that hits you hard, smash that like button, share with a friend, and subscribe. This story's about to unravel. I used to think my life had finally settled into a quiet rhythm. After all those years of grinding it out alone, I'm Henry, 65, a retired engineer living in New England. My wife passed away from cancer when Sophia was just a kid, and from then on, it was all about her. Not the mushy, over-the-top kind of bond, but the real stuff, daily phone calls where we'd chat about everything from her job drama to the latest Netflix binge. I figured that connection was rock solid, like our family beach house in Cape Cod, a place we'd held on to through thick and thin. But boy, things can change in a heartbeat, starting with a phone call on an ordinary Wednesday morning not too long ago. The phone buzzed while I was pouring my coffee just like any other day. Sophia's name popped up on the screen and I smiled as I answered. "Hey, kiddo, what's up?" I said, keeping it light. But her voice on the other end was off flat, almost scripted. "Dad, I'm calling to let you know Damien and I got married yesterday. It was small, just the people who really matter. Don't be upset, okay?" I froze the mug halfway to my lips, coffee turning cold. "Married? Why didn't you tell me I could have been there even if it was just—" My words trailed off, but I kept my tone steady. She sighed like I was complicating things. Dad Damien thought it was best to keep it intimate. His family's pretty traditional, and I wanted to respect that. Anyway, no drama. Right, can you send the keys to the beach house? We're thinking of using it for our honeymoon. Damien's excited. He says the property value's shot up. It'll be the perfect spot to unwind. Her words hit like a punch to the gut. Not invited to my only daughter's wedding, and now asking for the keys to our beach house, like it's just some handy vacation rental. It felt like all the love I'd poured into her was being tossed aside, trampled underfoot. I'd given up so much for that girl, skipped promotions to stay close after her mom died, worked double shifts to cover the bills, turned that beach house into our safe haven. And for what, to be sidelined as not important enough, I swallowed hard, forcing calm into my voice. "Sure, congrats, honey. I'll get the keys to you." Then I hung up and sank into the kitchen chair, hands shaking a bit. What got to me most wasn't just the exclusion, it was how casual she sounded about it, like Damien had rewritten our whole history. I sat there staring at the wall, the hurt building up like a storm inside. Part of me wanted to call back and yell, "How could you do this to me after everything?" But that's not my style. Life's taught me that yelling doesn't fix a damn thing. It's quiet action that counts. So instead, I grabbed my old notebook, the one I used for jotting down engineering ideas back in the day, and started writing. Not to vent, but to sort it out. Phone call today, Sophia married in secret. Damien wants beach house for value appreciation. What's his angle on the money? Putting it on paper helped me rein in the emotions, keep my head clear. I'm not one to whine about unfairness. I've faced worse. But this lit a fire under me. I'd figure out what Damien was really after beyond love. Let me tell you about that beach house so you get why her request stung so bad. It was our escape after my wife died. Sophia was 8, crying herself to sleep every night, missing her mom. I packed us up and headed to Cape Cod, where the salty breeze and soft sand felt like a fresh start. "Dad, I'm scared of the water," she'd say, as I tried teaching her to swim. I'd hold her tight and chuckle, "I've got you, kid. Dad's not letting you sink." We'd spend hours out there, me showing her how to ride the waves, building sandcastles that'd wash away with the tide, sharing stories about her mom and how she loved the sea. Those trips weren't just fun. They were how I filled the void. I turned down a big city job to stay near her school, pulled extra hours to keep the place in the family, our heritage, where Sophia once declared, "I'll get married here someday, Dad with you walking me down the sand." All that sacrifice poured out without a second thought, and now it felt wasted bitter in my mouth. Had I given her everything just to be pushed aside, I sat with that cold coffee, the shock simmering into something sharper, a quiet resolve. My wife used to say, "Henry's strength isn't shouting. It's standing tall when the world knocks you down." So that's what I'd do. No outbursts, just steps forward. I'd uncover the truth, and if it called for, it'd give them a wedding gift they'd never see coming. But those memories made me wonder about Damien right from the start. Let me take you back to the first time I met Damien about 2 years ago. Sophia had been raving about this guy she'd bumped into at a coffee shop, said he really understood her, saw her for who she was. I was thrilled for her, honestly. My daughter deserved that kind of happiness, someone who appreciated her smarts and her big heart. So I went all out for dinner at my place, whipping up my famous lasagna, the one she's begged for since she was little. But that evening, something about Damien raised a quiet red flag in my mind like a warning light flickering on a dashboard. He arrived looking sharp in a tailored suit, all smiles and charm, with a bouquet of roses in hand. "Henry, your home has such charm," he said, his handshake firm but calculated. During dinner, he asked about my engineering career, nodded along to my stories, and even jumped in to help with the dishes. Picture perfect, right? But then the subtle jabs started slipping in so smooth, you'd almost miss them. "Sophia's so driven," he remarked with a knowing grin. "It must be hard for a traditional guy like you to step back and let her fly solo." Traditional, I brushed it off with a laugh, but it landed like a barb. And he kept circling back to the beach house 3 times that night. "Sounds like a gold mine these days, with Cape Cod prices skyrocketing," he said, eyes gleaming a little too eagerly, like he was appraising more than just a family spot. I tried to shake it off. Sophia was beaming, laughing at his quips, leaning into him like she'd found her missing piece. "Dad, he's the real deal," she'd whispered to me earlier, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen since her childhood dreams of fairy tale endings. But as the months rolled on, the cracks started showing. Our daily calls dwindled first to every few days, then barely once a week. When I gently asked why, she'd echo his words, "Damien says strong couples build their own world first. You get it right, Dad?" It sounded rehearsed, like she'd been coached. What really gnawed at me was how Damien knew details he had no business knowing. One evening, Sophia casually mentioned he'd brought up her mom's ex, Thomas, the guy who'd tanked his business and left us high and dry years ago. "Damien thinks it's tragic how Thomas pulled you under with him," she said, like it was no big deal. But I'd kept those messy details from her, not wanting to poison her memories. So where did he get that info? It bugged me enough to start digging a little. Nothing dramatic. Just scrolling through Sophia's social media feeds. Her posts with him looked polished, full of fancy dinners and weekend getaways, but her eyes, they seemed distant, like the light in them was fading. I'm no sleuth, but fixing complex systems for decades taught me to read between the lines, and Damien's polished routine didn't add up. I didn't lash out or grill her, that's never been my way. I've always tackled problems methodically, like troubleshooting a faulty circuit one connection at a time. But seeing those changes, her pulling away, echoing his lines, it cut deep. I'd raised her to be strong and independent, poured my heart into giving her a solid foundation, only to watch it get undermined. It felt like all that love was being twisted against me, trampled without a second thought. I noted it in my journal, Damien knows too much about Thomas. Pushing Sophia away, what's his endgame with the beach house? The pain simmered, turning into a steady, quiet anger. I wouldn't sit idle. The isolation he was weaving around my daughter, that was the push I needed to start acting. I figured the worst was behind me after noticing Sophia pulling away, but I was dead wrong. A few weeks after that uneasy dinner with Damien, things took a turn that hit me harder than I expected. I was out in my garage one evening, tinkering with an old radio to keep my hands busy, when my phone lit up with Sophia's name. I answered quick, hoping for one of our old heart-to-hearts, but her voice was tight, like she was reading from a script. "Dad, I need to talk about something, and I need you to keep it cool, okay?" Those words are never a good sign. I sat down on a creaky stool, wiping grease off my hands. "Go ahead, honey, what's up?" She took a deep breath, and what she said next felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Damien's been reading up on what makes a marriage work. She started stuff about family dynamics and healthy boundaries. He thinks I've leaned on you too much over the years, calling you when I'm stressed, instead of working things out with him. He showed me these articles, says that kind of dependence can mess up a relationship. I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept my voice steady. "Sophia, talking to your dad when you're down isn't a problem. It's what families do." She pushed back, her tone sharp, almost rehearsed. "Damien says we need space to build our own life, Dad. Less contact, more focus on us as a couple. And he wants us to spend Christmas with his family this year to start our own traditions." Christmas. That word landed like a sledgehammer. Every year since her mom walked out, it's been our thing. Sophia driving up from Boston, us lounging in flannel pajamas, sipping hot cocoa by the tree, laughing over silly gifts like she was still a kid. It's what kept us anchored through the rough years. Now Damien was trying to erase that, and she was going along with it. But she wasn't done. "There's one more thing," she said, her voice dropping. "Damien's been pushing me to ask about the beach house. He says it's awkward for us to use it when it's still in your name. Like he feels we're always under your thumb there, and it puts pressure on our marriage. He thinks we should have the deed, make it ours." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. "He wants me to sign over the beach house." She rushed to soften it. "Not exactly, Dad. He just wants a place that feels like ours, you know, without any strings." Strings. Like my love, my life's work, keeping that house for her was some kind of burden holding them back. That conversation dragged up a memory that made her words burn even deeper. One Christmas, when Sophia was 12, we were decorating the tree together, just the two of us. She was stringing tinsel, giggling, and looked up at me with those big eyes. "Dad, promise we'll always do Christmas like this, just you and me." I'd ruffled her hair and said, "Always, kiddo. This is our deal." That tradition was our lifeline, part of the American dream of holding family close through thick and thin. I'd skipped better jobs, worked nights to pay off debts, all to give her stability, a home, a future. Now, Damien was convincing her to toss that aside like our bond was some old habit to break. It felt like my heart, all the love I'd poured into her, was being trampled without a second thought. I didn't raise my voice or argue. That's never been my style. I ended the call with, "I'll think about the deed, sweetheart," and hung up. But sitting there in the dim garage, the hurt boiled into something fierce, something focused. I wasn't going to let Damien rewrite our family like this. I opened my laptop and started digging, just basic searches at first, typing in Damien's name, his supposed consulting job. Anything that might explain why he was so hell-bent on boundaries and getting his hands on my property. I'd spent years as an engineer tracking down problems to their root, and I was damn good at it. In my notebook, I scribbled Damien's using family dynamics articles to push Sophia away. Why's he so fixated on the beach house deed? What's he hiding? The pain of being shut out wasn't breaking me. It was lighting a fire. I couldn't sit still anymore. Whatever Damien was up to, I'd find out, and I'd protect my daughter no matter what it took. I couldn't shake that fire Damien had ignited in me after our last talk. It wasn't the kind of anger that explodes, more like a steady glow, pushing me to do something real. I knew I wasn't equipped to play detective, but my engineering background had drilled in one thing: when a system's failing, you trace the fault lines methodically. So the morning after that garage conversation, I picked up the phone and called an old work buddy, Mike, who'd gone private as a PI. He's the no-nonsense type, reliable as they come. "Henry, long time no see. What's the trouble?" he asked, his voice rough from years of coffee and late nights. I laid it out plain. "My daughter's hooked up with this guy Damien Morrison. Something's not adding up. Can you run a check background finances the works?" Mike didn't pry. "Give me a week. It'll cost you, but I'll dig deep." I wired him the money from my savings without a second thought. If it meant safeguarding Sophia, it was a small price. A week later, his report landed in my inbox, and it was like opening a can of worms I didn't know existed. Damien wasn't the smooth consultant he pretended to be. He'd left a string of wrecked lives women just like Sophia, smart, successful, with family money on the horizon. Two names stood out: Emma Chen and Sarah Walsh. Emma's folks owned a restaurant chain. Sarah had a hefty trust fund. Both relationships had crashed when their families uncovered Damien's game, charming his way in isolating them from loved ones, then dipping into their assets before vanishing. Mike's summary was stark: consistent pattern of manipulation, history of gambling debts, no steady job, lives off consulting gigs that don't check out. I sat at my kitchen table, the report spread out, my morning coffee untouched. It hit me hard. This wasn't random. Damien was a pro at preying on vulnerability. I needed more than paper. Mike had Emma's contact, so I reached out, careful not to spook her. We met at a quiet diner downtown, the kind with vinyl booths and endless coffee refills. Emma was in her 30s, dressed sharp, but with eyes that carried weight, like she'd seen too much, too soon. "Henry," she said, sliding in to Ross from me, "your daughter's with Damien. I'm so sorry. That man's poison." Over pie and black coffee, she spilled it all. "He swept me off my feet. At first, flowers, compliments, the works. Then he started the isolation. Your family's too involved. Real couples handle things together." He'd mock my dad behind his back, call him that old fool sitting on his restaurant empire, like he was just a wallet to tap. Her voice cracked a bit, but she kept going. "He convinced me to add him to accounts, said it was for our future. Turned out, he was using money from shady loans to fund his lifestyle gambling fancy suits. When my father hired a detective and found the debts Damien ghosted, left me questioning every decision I ever made." Emma's words fueled a rage I could feel building, hot and steady, but I kept it in check, nodding, letting her talk. She warned me about the pattern Damien targeted women with inheritance potential, using charm to get close control to get what he wanted. "He's not in love. He's in it for the payoff," she said flatly. "No bitterness, just truth. If he's with Sophia, watch your family's assets." That landed like a punch. Sophia had her job, but the beach house, and whatever lingered from her mom's side, was her legacy. Emma handed me Sarah's number. "Call her. It's the same story. And be careful, he's slick." What really floored me was a nugget in Mike's report that tied it all to my own history. Damien's grandfather, William Morrison, had been partners with Thomas, Sophia's mom's ex, the guy who'd ruined us financially years ago. William embezzled over $2 million from their deal skipped town, leaving Thomas bankrupt and us in the dust. The stress broke him, leading him to abandon us when Sophia was 8. Did Damien know this link? Was he exploiting it? The question gnawed at me, a loose wire in the circuit. I scribbled it down. Grandfather stole from Thomas. Damien aware his play. I didn't stop there. Late one night, house dark and quiet, I took a bigger risk. I'm no cyber whiz, but I know enough from my engineering days, basic tools, password cracks, public traces. I got into an old email account Damien had linked on a forgotten profile. It was dicey. If he spotted it, things could turn ugly fast. But the payoff was huge emails from years back plotting opportunities with women like Emma, even chats about offshore accounts from his grandfather's stash. One line chilled me. This one's ideal family ties weak after the dad drama property ripe for the taking. My hands shook as I saved the files, the fan nose surging like a storm. I'd poured my soul into Sophia only for this snake to poison it, trample our bond like it was nothing. But I locked it down, focused on the plan. This wasn't about blowing up. It was about smart moves. At my age, you'd think I'd seen it all, but uncovering Damien's web showed me otherwise. Family's supposed to be your rock, not a con man's target. The anger was there, but I channeled it, kept my head clear like diagnosing a faulty engine. I wasn't going to let him win. But risks were lurking, I could feel them closing in, and I had to stay one step ahead. Uncovering Damien's secrets had me feeling like I'd poked a hornet's nest, and sure enough, the stings started coming fast. A day or two after that chat with Emma, I got this uneasy prickle on the back of my neck like someone was watching my every move. It wasn't just in my head. I was out running errands, grabbing groceries like any normal afternoon, when I noticed a dark SUV in my rearview mirror, tailing me a little too close, turning when I turned. I tried shaking it off, taking a random side road, but it stuck like glue before finally peeling away. My pulse quickened. I gripped the wheel tighter, scanning the mirrors the whole way home. That night, as I double-checked the locks on the doors, a habit I hadn't had since Sophia was little. My phone rang from an unknown number. I hesitated but answered. Damien's voice came through low and menacing like a snake hissing in the dark. "Henry, you're meddling where you don't belong," he said. No greeting, just straight venom. "Keep digging, and I'll make sure Sophia sees you for the jealous old fool you are. She'll hate you forever, cut you out like the dead weight you are." I could hear the smirk in his tone, the cold calculation. "What the hell do you mean?" I shot back, keeping my voice level, though my heart was hammering. He chuckled, that chilling sound echoing in my ear. "You know exactly what. Back off, or things get ugly for you and her." The line went dead, leaving me in the quiet of my living room, the shadows feeling thicker than before. I didn't sleep much that night, jumping at every creak in the house, wondering if he was out there watching. But it got worse. A few days later, there was a knock at the door, 2 cops standing on my porch, badges gleaming under the porch light. "Mr. Thompson, we've got a report of harassment," the lead officer said, his face neutral, but eyes sharp. My stomach dropped like a stone. Harassment from who? They explained Damien's brother Marcus, a hotshot lawyer with connections, had filed it, claiming I'd been stalking the couple, sending anonymous threats, and interfering in their marriage. It was all lies twisted to make me look like the villain. I invited them in, showed them my notebook, nothing but notes on what I'd found, and explained it was just a worried dad looking out for his girl. "This guy's bad news," I said calmly, though inside I was raging. The cops took notes, said it seemed like a family dispute, but warned me, "Stay clear or this could escalate." As they drove off, I felt the noose tightening. For a split second, I thought about quitting, packing it all away, pretending I didn't know. What if this blew up? What if Sophia believed their spin saw me as the problem? That doubt hit hard, nearly knocking me down. I slumped in my chair, staring at the wall, the weight of it all pressing in. At my age, you'd think I'd know better than to play hero. But then, the memories crept back, steadying me like an old anchor. I remembered the nights after her mom left Sophia, 8 years old, crying in her bed. I'd sit there holding her, whispering, "We'll be okay, kiddo. Dad's got you." I gave up good jobs to be there for her, worked overtime to keep the lights on, skipped my own dreams to build hers. Those sacrifices weren't just history. They were the core of who I am. Damien wasn't just threatening me. He was attacking that core, trying to steal the bond I'd fought for. No, I couldn't quit. That fear turned into fuel, a quiet Kian Kung that said, "Not today." I straightened up, grabbed my phone, and kept going. Pushing through, I called Sarah, the other woman from Mike's report. Her voice was cautious at first, but when I mentioned Emma, she opened up. "Damien ruined me too," she said, her tone flat, but edged with pain. "Charmed his way in, cut me off from my brothers, then went for the trust fund. He'd sneer about my dad, that old miser hoarding his fortune like it was funny. When we confronted him on the debts, he bolted." She shared more screenshots of emails, tips on his tricks, even names of others he'd hurt. "You're building a network now," she said. "That's how we beat guys like him together." Talking to her was a lifeline, proof I wasn't alone. It showed my key entry paying off, turning isolated fear into something stronger. I spent hours cross-checking her info with what I had, even risking a deeper dive into public records. And that's when I stumbled on an email chain that made my blood run cold. Damien researching Sophia months before their chance meeting. Notes on her job, our family history, even bullet points on exploiting weak ties after the mom left. One message to his brother. "Long play, get in Isolate. Secure the assets. She's prime." Long play. The scale of it hit me. How far back did this scheme go? Was it all calculated from day one? The risks were mounting: Damien's surveillance, his brother's legal jab, the cops at my door. But they didn't crush me. If anything, they sharpened my edge, turning that initial fear into a steely resolve. I wasn't some lone wolf. I had a network now and the truth on my side. But now was the time for the reveal. I thought digging into Damien's past would arm me with the truth. But it turned out to be like kicking a hornet's nest. The backlash came swift and stinging. Just a day or two after that tense call with Sarah, I started getting this creepy feeling like eyes were boring into my back wherever I went. It wasn't my imagination. I was heading out for a walk one evening, trying to clear my head, when I spotted a dark SUV idling across the street, same one I'd seen near the coffee shop earlier. My gut twisted. I quickened my pace, glancing over my shoulder, but it pulled away slow like a warning. That night, as I bolted the doors a little tighter than usual, an anonymous note slipped under my front door. I picked it up with shaky hands. "Stop snooping, old man, or you'll regret it. Sophia's mine now." No signature, but I knew Damien's hand in it, the cold threat, the way it played on my fears. I didn't let it rattle me too much, but damn, it was close. The next morning, my phone rang from an unknown number. I answered, and there was Damien, his voice a low growl. "Henry, you're crossing lines, you shouldn't," he said, skipping any pleasantries. "Keep this up, and I'll make sure Sophia hates you for good, paint you as the bitter dad wrecking her happiness. Back off or things get ugly." I could hear the menace, like a dog baring teeth. Ugly how I asked, keeping my tone even though my heart was pounding like a jackhammer. He laughed that nasty, knowing chuckle. "You'll see. Family secrets cut deep yours more than most." The line went dead, leaving me staring at the wall, the fear sinking in. At my age, you'd think I'd avoid this spy game, but here I was tangled in it. It escalated fast. A couple days later, there was a knock at the door, 2 cops on my porch, looking official. "Mr. Thompson, we've got a harassment complaint," the lead one said, flipping open his notebook. My stomach plummeted. "From who?" They laid it out. Damien's brother Marcus, that slick lawyer with ties everywhere, had filed it, claimed I'd been stalking the couple, sending threatening messages and interfering. It was pure fiction, twisted to make me the villain. I invited them in, showed my notebook, nothing but facts I'd gathered, and explained, "This is about protecting my daughter from a bad situation." The cops listened, said it seemed like family drama, but warned me, "Tread lightly, or this could go south." As they left, the doubt hit hard. What if I was in over my head? What if this cost me Sophia for real? I slumped in my chair, the house feeling too quiet, too empty. For a moment, I considered quitting, packing it all away, pretending I didn't know. But that night, as the doubt-gnawed memories pulled me back like a lifeline, I remembered the tough years after her mom left Sophia at 8, crying for stability I fought to give. I'd skip promotions to be homework, overtime for bills, even turned down dates to coach her soccer games. "Dad's always here," I'd tell her. "Those sacrifices built our bond, the kind of American family backbone that weathers storms." Damien wasn't just threatening me. He was trying to snap that backbone, trample the love I'd poured into her like it was dirt under his shoe. No, I couldn't quit. That fear flipped into something fiercer, a quiet Kien Kung, the kind that says, "Not on my watch." I straightened up and kept at it. Pushing through, I called Sarah again, diving deeper. "You've got to build your case solid," she said, her voice steady but weary. "Damien's pattern is the same charm Escalate take. He mocked my dad as that old miser with money burning a hole in his pocket, thought it was hilarious." She sent me more screenshots, contacts for a support group of his victims. "You're not alone. Link up with us." It was empowering, turning my solo fight into a network. I spent hours cross-checking, even risking another peek at public records. And that's when I found an email chain that made my skin crawl. Damien, researching Sophia long before their accidental coffee shop meet. Notes on her job, our family cracks the beach house value Thomas's ruin, with lines like "vulnerable after dad issues," "long play, get in cut ties," "claim assets," "long play." The scale hit me. How far back did this con go? Was it years in the making? The dangers were mounting. Damien's surveillance, that note under the door. His brother's legal swing, the cops showing up. But they didn't crush me. If anything, they honed my edge, transforming that raw fear into a steely grit. I wasn't playing hero. I was a dad doing what dads do. But now was the time for the reveal. I thought the portfolio would be the turning point, a clean break, where the truth could do its work. But nothing in life wraps up that tidy. The morning after that heated call, I was out on the porch nursing my coffee, watching the sun rise like it had a million times before, when I heard tires crunch on the gravel. Sophia's car pulled up, and she stepped out, looking like she'd been through hell, hair-tangled eyes, puffy and red, still in the same clothes from yesterday. She trudged up the steps, her face crumbling before she even spoke. "Dad," she whispered, collapsing into my arms with sobs that shook her whole body. "What have I done?" We headed inside to the kitchen table, that old spot where we'd hashed out everything from school troubles to her first heartbreak. She pulled out a stack of printed emails from her bag, her hands trembling. After you hung up, Damien stormed out saying he needed time. I couldn't sleep. Your package kept nagging at me. So I went through his laptop, found these talks with his brother about assets, offshore money, even notes on me from before we met. Her tears fell onto the papers as she spread them out, the ink smudging a bit. He researched me, Dad, like I was some project. My job, the beach house value, even stuff about Mom leaving and Thomas's mess. How could he know all that? I listened, my heart twisting for her, but I kept quiet at first, letting her vent. She grabbed her phone and dialed Emma, putting it on speaker. "Is it true?" Sophia asked, her voice cracking. Emma's reply came through clear and compassionate. "Yeah, sweetheart, it's the same playbook. He isolated me, made me doubt my family, then went for the money. Your dad's onto something big. Don't let Damien gaslight you." Sophia hung up, burying her face in her hands. "I feel so stupid, Dad. I pushed you away, the one person who's always had my back. Remember those late nights you'd work just to keep the lights on after Mom left? Or the beach trips where you'd teach me to swim, saying we'd always stick together? I threw that all away for him." Her guilt poured out raw and heavy, and it hit me like a wave, seeing my strong girl break, but also feeling that old bond stirring back to life. At my age, you'd think I'd be used to heartaches, but this one stung fresh. I'd given her everything only for Damien to twist it into chains, trample our connection like it was nothing. But as her sobs eased, something shifted in her, a spark of fire replacing the tears. "He's texting me now," she said, showing her phone. "Says he misses me, wants to come home and talk, make things right." The message was all sweet. "Babe, I'm sorry for overreacting. Let's fix this together." But we both saw the trap in it, that manipulative charm he wielded like a weapon. "What if it's a setup?" She whispered, her eyes wide, like he's trying to smooth it over. "Get me to doubt you again." The question hung there, making the air feel thicker. Damien was crafty. He'd already tried threats and legal plays. What if this was his way to reel her back in? Twist the narrative. That's when we turned it around. Sophia wiped her face, her voice steadying. "I won't fall for it. We need to end this, Dad, not just for me, for Emma, Sarah, anyone else he's hurt." I nodded, pulling out my notes from Mike the PI, who had a contact at the FBI from past cases. We called Agent Lou together, and she listened as we laid it out. The portfolio, the emails, the pattern. "Sounds like classic financial fraud and coercion," she said. "If you're up for it, we can wire you Sophia. Get him on tape admitting to the money, the manipulation." Sophia didn't hesitate. "Let's do it." We spent the afternoon plotting how she'd act normal when he showed up, steer the conversation to the offshore accounts and his past, while the FBI listened nearby. It was risky, but seeing us team up like that, like the old days, gave me a quiet hope. Our family wasn't shattered. It was rebuilding stronger in the cracks. Her guilt had burned hot, but now it fueled a fierce determination, a promise to make things right. "I won't let him win," she said, hugging me tight. "The trap was set." I thought the portfolio would flip the switch, letting the truth do its heavy lifting. But nothing ever ties up that easy in real life. The morning after that raw call, I was on the porch with my coffee, staring at the horizon like it held some answers when I heard a car crunch up the driveway. Sophia stepped out, looking wrecked hair, a tangled eyes swollen from crying, still in yesterday's rumpled clothes. She shuffled up the steps, her face crumbling before she even reached me. "Dad," she choked out, falling into my arms with sobs that rattled her whole frame. "How could I be so blind?" We headed inside to the kitchen table, that worn spot where we'd solved 1,000 problems over the years. She dumped a stack of printed emails from her bag, her hands shaking like leaves in a storm. "After you hung up, Damien bolted, muttering he needed space. I couldn't stop thinking about your package, so I dug through his laptop. Found these chats with his brother about securing assets, offshore funds, even notes on me from months before we met by chance. Tears splashed onto the papers as she fanned them out, the ink blurring in spots. He stalked me online. Dad, my job, the beach house value even digs on Mom leaving and Thomas's collapse, like I was some puzzle to crack. I listened, my chest tight, but I let her pour it out, the words tumbling like a dam breaking. She snatched her phone and dialed Emma, putting it on speaker. "Tell me it's not true," Sophia pleaded, her voice cracking. Emma's reply was gentle but firm. "It is on. He did the same to me, charmed me silly, cut me off from my folks, then went for the family money. Called my dad that old tightwad with a gold mine like it was a joke. Your dad's right. It's his playbook." Sophia hung up, slumping forward. "I feel like such an idiot, Dad. I shoved you aside, the one who's always been my rock. Those late nights you worked to keep us afloat. After Mom bailed the beach trips, where you'd teach me to swim, saying we'd always have each other, I tossed that for him." Her guilt hit like a tidal wave, raw and unrelenting, and it tore at me too, seeing my girl shattered, but also glimpsing our old connection flickering back. I'd poured my heart into her only for Damien to twist it like a knife, trample our bond, as if it was worthless. But as her crying eased, a shift happened, her tears drying into something fierce. "He's texting me," she said, showing her phone. The message was all sugar. "Babe, I'm sorry for freaking out. Miss you coming home to talk fix this tonight. Love you." But we both saw the snake in it. "What if it's a ploy?" she whispered, her eyes narrowing. "Like he's trying to reel me back in. Make me question you again. Get his hands on everything." The question hung heavy, making the air feel thick with danger. Damien was a master at flipping scripts, threats one day, charm the next. What if this was his way to slither out, turn the tables before we could strike? That's when we locked in the plan. Sophia squared her shoulders. "I won't let him. We end this, Dad, for me, for Emma, Sarah, for any other woman he's targeting." I nodded, pulling out Mike's number. The PI had a direct line to the FBI from past fraud cases. We called Agent Lou, laying it all out. The portfolio emails his pattern. "Classic coercion and fraud," Lou said, her voice crisp. "Wire up Sophia. Get him admitting the money. The manipulation will be outside, ready to roll." Sophia didn't flinch. "I'm in." We spent the afternoon hashing details, how she'd play it cool when he arrived, nudge him toward confessing about the offshore cash and his grandpa's theft, while the FBI listened in. It was dicey, but working side by side like that, like a team, again sparked something warm in me. Family's the heart of the American dream, right? Damien tried to rip ours apart. But here we were, stitching it back stronger. Her guilt had burned bright, but now it fueled a rock-solid determination. "I won't be his puppet anymore," she said, hugging me fierce. The trap was set. I thought setting the trap would be the hard part, but the waiting was what nearly did me in, like sitting on a powder keg with a lit fuse. The day after Sophia came to me with those emails, we met Agent Lou at a nondescript office downtown, the kind that looks like it could be selling insurance instead of running stings. She fitted Sophia with a tiny wire mic tucked under her collar where no one would spot it, and ran through the drill again. "Keep it natural," Lou said, her tone all business. "Get him talking about the money, the offshore stuff, his grandpa's theft. We'll be in the van outside, ears on everything. If it goes sideways, we're in fast." Sophia nodded, her face a mix of nerves and steel. "I got this, Dad," she whispered as we hugged. I drove home with a knot in my stomach. What if Damien saw through it? What if he snapped? But I had to trust her. Trust the plan. I was on standby, the secure line open on my laptop, ready to jump if needed. That evening I paced the living room floor, the audio feed crackling in my ears like a lifeline. Sophia's voice came through clear as she let him in. "Hey, babe, glad you're back," she said, a hint of tremble to sell the act. Damien started sweet, like we'd figured he would. "I'm sorry for losing it last night. Your dad's package got under my skin. Let's talk this out." They settled on the couch and she eased into it just like we'd rehearsed. "Damien, those emails, the research on me before we met, and the money from your grandpa, did you know it was stolen from Thomas, that it wrecked my family?" There was a beat of silence, then his voice hardened. "What? Yeah, I knew. Grandpa William took what was owed. Thomas was a weak link, couldn't handle the game. I used what was left to build our life. The beach house, the assets, it's all part of the plan. You think I'd marry you for love alone? Come on, babe. You're smarter than that." Her gasp was real, and mine too. I clenched the laptop edge pulse, racing. "Plan? You mean you targeted me?" He laughed, that ugly sound echoing. "Long game, yeah. Your dad's history made it easy emotional cracks to pry open. Isolate, you get the inheritance. But if you bail now—" His tone shifted dark. "You'll regret it. I own this now, you, the money, all of it." Then the twist that stopped my heart. A drawer scraped open, a metallic click. Sophia's voice sharp with fear. "Damien, what are you doing? Put that down." He'd grabbed a gun from somewhere, his voice low and threatening. "This is what happens when people cross me. Your dad thinks he's clever. He'll be next if you don't shut this down." I didn't hesitate, yelled into the secure line, "Lou, he's got a gun! Get in there now!" It was my Cantheep Tusa buying those critical seconds as the team burst in. Doors crashed, shouts of FBI. "Hands up!" filled the feed. Damien's arrogance shattered. He dropped the gun, stammering, "Wait, this is a mistake." They cuffed him fast, his face, ashen body trembling, like he'd seen a ghost. Sophia was safe. Her voice shaky but relieved when she called me minutes later. "Dad, it's done, he's gone." I sank back, the rush fading into a deep satisfaction. I'd shielded her, proved a dad's love could outlast any con. But as the dust settled, I wondered what more the trial would drag out, how many other secrets he'd buried. The win was sweet, but it left me pondering the cost. Still, justice was rolling in. I thought the courtroom testimonies would be the final punch, the moment where everything fell into place. But it wasn't until the verdict came down that I felt the weight lift like a storm cloud finally breaking. A few days after Sophia, Emma, and Marcus took the stand, we were back in that old brick courthouse, the air heavy with anticipation, like you could feel the whole room holding its breath. Sophia sat beside me in the gallery, her hand gripping mine, her fingers cold but steady as steel. The jury shuffled in their faces, unreadable, and my heart pounded like a jackhammer. I'm no stranger to waiting years, as an engineer taught me patience. But this was different. This was about my daughter, our family, and the truth we'd fought to uncover. The judge cleared his throat, his voice flat as he read, "Guilty on all counts, conspiracy, money laundering, fraud, and criminal marriage fraud, with intent to commit grand larceny." The words hit like a thunderclap, and I felt Sophia's grip tighten, a small gasp escaping her lips. Damien stood at the defendant's table, his polished facade cracking like cheap glass. The judge laid out the sentence, 12 years in federal prison and $8 million in restitution to his victims, including Sophia, Emma, and Sarah. He'd drained most of the stolen money so that 8 million meant he'd leave prison with nothing but the shame he'd earned. He jumped up, voice shaking, pleading like a kid caught red-handed. "Your Honor, please, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. It was a mistake. I'm not a criminal." His eyes darted around desperate, but the courtroom saw the truth. A coward unmasked, no trace of the slick con man who'd mocked us with his smirks. The bailiffs grabbed his arms and he kept begging, his voice fading as they dragged him out. "Sophia, tell them I love you." She didn't flinch, just stared straight ahead, her jaw set. I leaned over, whispering, "You okay, kiddo?" She nodded, a single tear sliding down her cheek, but her eyes burned with something fierce, not pain, but strength. Outside the courthouse, under a gray New England sky, Sophia let out a long breath, like she'd been holding it for years. "We did it, Dad," she said, her voice soft but sure. We walked to a nearby diner, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tastes like home, and sat down to talk it out. "The restitution's coming through," she said, stirring her coffee absently. "Maybe 4 million with interest from Thomas's estate money that was always ours. But I don't want to just sit on it. I'm starting a support group for women like me, Emma, Sarah, anyone who's been played by someone like Damien. We'll share resources, stories, help them spot the signs early so they don't lose what we did." Her voice had that fire I'd seen when she was a kid standing up to playground bullies, and it made my chest swell with pride. But there was a question lingering in my mind, one I didn't voice yet. After all this, where do we go from here? What's next for a dad and daughter who've been through hell and back? That question hung there open and uncertain, like a blank page, waiting for ink. I thought about it as we ate the clink of forks and the hum of the diner grounding us. Damien's conviction wasn't just a win in court. It was proof that truth could cut through lies, that a father's quiet fight could make a difference. But it wasn't the sentence that mattered most. It was what we did with the pieces left behind. Later that evening, back at the house, we sat at the kitchen table, our old spot for fixing things from math homework to broken hearts. I pulled out an envelope and slid it across to her, my hands steady despite the lump in my throat. "This is for you," I said. Inside was the deed to the beach house signed over to her name. "It's not about the money or the property value. It's our history, you me, those summers when we rebuilt our family after your mom left. I want you to have it, Sophia, to make new memories, maybe even that barefoot wedding you used to dream about with fairy lights, and me walking you down the sand." Her eyes welled up, and she reached across, grabbing my hand. "Dad, I don't deserve this. Not after I pushed you away, believed him over you." Her voice broke, and it took me back to those days when she'd cry over a scraped knee, looking to me to make it right. "You deserve it, because you're my daughter," I said, my own voice catching. "Always have been, always will be. Damien tried to break us, but he didn't know who he was messing with." She laughed through her tears, a sound I hadn't heard in too long, and hugged me tight like she was 8 again, and I was her whole world. Handing over that deed wasn't just a gift. It was my way of saying our bond was tougher than any con. A piece of the American dream, where family stands stronger than the storms that hit it. As we sat there, the weight of the past year seemed to lift like a fog clearing off the coast. The victory in court was sweet. No doubt seeing Damien beg and crumble felt like justice served on a silver platter. But the real win was us sitting together, laughing over pizza crumbs, planning a future that wasn't defined by his lies. I'm no caped crusader, just a dad who'd go to hell and back for his kid, and knowing Sophia was free, ready to rebuild, made every risk worth it. But it got me thinking about the bigger picture, what's next for us. Would she find her way? Maybe start that group. Maybe walk down that beach aisle someday. The future was wide open, a fresh start, waiting to be shaped. And we were starting over. I thought the verdict would be the grand finale the moment everything clicked into place and we could finally breathe easy. But real life doesn't hand you neat endings like that. It's more like a long road with a few more bumps before the smooth stretch. The day the jury came back, the courthouse felt even stuffier than usual, the air thick with that mix of sweat and anticipation, like a packed church on Easter Sunday. Sophia and I sat in the gallery, her hand in mine, fingers laced tight, like she was afraid to let go. The jury filed in slow, their faces blank as poker players, and my heart thumped hard against my ribs. I'd waded through plenty in my life: job bids, doctor's calls after my wife's diagnosis, but this was for my daughter, for the family we'd almost lost. The judge adjusted his glasses and read it out flat. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy, money laundering, fraud, and criminal marriage fraud with intent to commit grand larceny. The words hung there echoing off the wood-paneled walls, and Sophia let out a shaky breath, her grip squeezing mine like a lifeline. Damien shot up from his seat, his face draining of color, that smug mask he'd worn cracking wide open. The judge didn't miss a beat, laying out the sentence: 12 years in federal prison and $8 million in restitution to his victims, Sophia, Emma, Sarah, and the others he'd preyed on. He'd blown through most of the stolen cash on his fancy life, so that $8 million meant he'd walk out, broke nothing but regrets to his name. He started pleading, voice high and desperate, like a kid begging not to be grounded. "Your Honor, please, I didn't mean any harm. It was a mistake. I'm not a monster." His eyes darted wild, landing on Sophia for a second, pleading. "Sophia, tell them I love you. We can fix this." But she didn't budge, just stared ahead, her jaw set firm. The bailiffs moved in, grabbing his arms, and he kept babbling as they dragged him out, his voice echoing down the hall until it faded to nothing. Seeing him reduced to that whining exposed brought a quiet satisfaction, like finally nailing that loose board that's been creaking for years. No more smirks, no more games. The coward was unmasked. Outside, under a drizzly New England sky, Sophia and I stood on the steps, the cool air hitting us like a fresh start. She let out a long sigh, like she'd been holding it in for months. "We did it, Dad," she said, her voice soft but sure, a small smile breaking through. We walked to a little diner around the corner, the kind with worn booths and coffee that tastes like it's been brewing since morning. We slid into a seat by the window, ordering burgers and fries, comfort food, the stuff that grounds you after a storm. As we ate, she opened up more. "The restitution's coming through soon," she said, picking at her fries. "Around $4 million with interest from Thomas's estate, the money Grandpa William stole all those years ago. It's like getting back what was ours." Her eyes lit up a bit. "But I'm not hoarding it. I want to start a support group for women like me. Emma, Sarah, anyone who's been conned, manipulated, cut off from their loved ones. We'll share stories, resources, maybe even legal tips to spot these guys early. No one should feel that alone." I nodded, my chest swelling with pride. "That's my girl turning lemons into lemonade." She laughed, a real one, the sound warming the booth. "It's because of you, Dad. You didn't give up on me even when I pushed you away." We talked for hours, the diner emptying around us as the rain picked up outside. She asked about the old days, and I shared stories I'd kept buried the nights I'd worked double shifts after her mom left, coming home exhausted but still making time for bedtime stories. "I did it for you, kiddo," I said. to keep our family going." And her eyes teared up again. "I know, and I threw it back in your face, believing him over the man who raised me alone. I'm so sorry." I pulled her into a hug across the table, the scent of her shampoo taking me back to when she was little. "No more sorries. We're here now. That's what counts." Back home that evening, we kept the momentum going. Sophia pulled out the old photo albums from the shelf, the ones with faded covers and yellowed pages. We sat on the couch, flipping through them under the lamp's warm glow. There we were, Sophia as a toddler, splashing in the waves at Cape Cod, me holding her up with a big grin. "Remember this," she said, pointing to a shot of us building sandcastles. "You'd stay up late, drawing plans for them like they were real buildings." I chuckled. Had to make 'em sturdy, couldn't let the tide win. And we laughed over the silly ones like Halloween costumes gone wrong, but got quiet on the tougher pages, pictures from after her mom left, just the two of us at Christmas trying to make it merry. "You sacrificed so much," she whispered. "Skipped dates, better jobs, all to be there for me. And I let Damien make me doubt you." I shook my head. Water under the bridge. What matters is we're rebuilding. As the night wore on, she shared her dreams for the future. With the money, the group will be real workshops, hotlines, maybe even partnerships with folks like Agent Lou. And the beach house. I want to get married there one day, Dad. For real this time, barefoot on the sand, fairy lights twinkling, you walking me down the aisle like I always imagined. My throat tightened, but I smiled. "I'd be honored, honey, but only when you find someone who sees your heart, not your wallet." We talked about that too, how she'd take it slow, rebuild her trust, maybe travel a bit with the group. It felt good, like mapping a new road after a detour. What sticks with me most is how the truth became that gift that keeps on giving. It didn't just nail Damien. It freed Sophia, mended our cracks, and showed us resilience isn't about never falling, it's about getting up stronger. In America, we love those comeback stories, don't we? The underdog who fights back the family that endures. I'm no caped crusader, just a dad who'd walk through fire for his kid, and knowing we came out the other side made every scar worth it. But it leaves you wondering, if you were cut off from your loved ones, manipulated into doubting them, what would you do? Would you dig for the truth, or let it slide? It's a question that hits home as we get older, seeing how fragile those ties can be. The satisfaction lingered, sweet and steady, like the calm after a long haul. We'd weathered the worst, our bond not just mended, but forged anew. And we were ready to start fresh. And that's where our story lands for now, a father and daughter picking up the pieces stronger for it. Looking back, I realized the truth wasn't just a weapon to take down Damien. It was a lifeline that pulled Sophia and me back together. It's funny how life works. Sometimes it's the hardest fights that remind you what matters most. Family trust, standing tall when the world tries to knock you down. In America, we hold tight to that idea, don't we? That no matter how bad it gets, you keep showing up for the ones you love. I'm no hero, just a dad who'd go to the ends of the earth for his kid. But I'm curious about you. Have you ever faced someone trying to tear you away from your family? Maybe a slick talker, a manipulator who made you doubt your own heart. What did you do? Share your story with us because your voice matters. It's in sharing that we find strength, that we remind each other we're not alone. So drop it in the comments or tell a friend. Let's keep this conversation going.